Hello, peoples of the internet! I return with the Tortoise again in 1986. Only we're going to change quite a bit. Firstly, we're going to change it to 1987, which is when we're going to introduce a turbo model to the lineup. You'll see this is the naturally aspirated version. It's a decent enough car in its own right, but it is not sporty. If we look through the menus, we'll find we can add a turbocharger, so I'm going to make a new variant of the engine, and we can change this stuff a bit later, I think. Just cast it all for now, and then we'll go to the turbo, add that on, and I think we'll go with a ball bearing. More expensive, but it should be a better technology overall, and the largest air intercooler we can get for the time being. Again, I might change all of this, and that's our start. So I'll finish up the engine and I'll join you again when I've done that. So here I have the engine I have ultimately designed. You'll see we've got single point injection still, the same as the vehicle had before actually, and we've got our turbo on the side. You'll see all the dimensions and stuff can't be changed. I thought I'd mention that now because it revs to 7200, which is the maximum I could get out of it, and without changing those there's nothing I can do about that. Thankfully it doesn't really need any more RPM. You'll see all the parts are much higher end. It was just all cast iron before because that was all it needed, but now I've had to go for this. That actually blows up the engine if you use that, but if you use forged it doesn't, which is actually the better performance technology. But we look at that, that's better for economy, so you know, for different purposes. It makes 160 horsepower and 163 torques. Not too bad specs. The economy is a little weak, I'll have to admit that. For 160 horsepower in the 1980s it's not too bad, but you know, it's still not ideal for economy. I have tried messing around with these. I just mess up the fine balance. It's probably possible to pull more power out of it, but then I'll just destroy the engine response completely. Remember, it's a 1.7 litre engine. There's only so much you can pull through it in the 80s without going crazy. The intercooler, I can get a bit more power from it, but for 2 or 3 horsepower, didn't seem it was worth it. That I've not really tried journal bearing, but in my experience, ball bearing is always better anyway. The boost, actually, yeah, I just pushed the boost up a bit there. I had a bit of a play with that, nothing crazy. I have just about managed to pull some more power through it though, and nothing else really does much. Ignition timing too, the same. I can just mess the engine up, but it's all in the balance now, I think, about as well as I'm going to get it. The RPM, it would increase the performance index if I revved it higher, the optimal supposedly being 7500, but because of engine limits you'll see that begins to explode by that point. I have to rev it to 7200. Still, I think it'll be a decent performance engine if it hangs on well enough. Something crazy has happened here actually. Is that what happened with the boost? Seemed like the slope increased. Maybe it's just me, but there is a bit of lag. Fairly smooth engine actually for power and torque. You'll see there's a hump where the power kicks in, but other than that it's actually fairly smooth in how it hits the red line. We've got all this stuff I mentioned, standard. I could put that on performance, it doesn't do much though. Again, not really worth it in your everyday vehicle. The exhaust is actually at the stock diameter, which works the best, surprisingly enough, for a high turbo 80s car. I mean, it's not as crazy as I was perhaps hoping for it to be, but in a 1987 standard kind of sports saloon, it's fine. Remember, we're not trying to build an M3 rival here. We're just trying to build a more sporty front wheel drive, and for that it works quite well. You'll see the weight of the engine is higher than before. I believe it was around 100 kilos before, now it's 132.4, so it's heavier. I'm as of yet unsure about the economy difference, but $929, it's still under $1,000, so more expensive but not too ridiculous. You see, 18.2 miles per gallon. It's still better than the first car we built, well, the first version of the Tortoise, even with all this extra power. But I think for transmission, we're going to want a 5-speed now. I mean, it is the sporty version, remember, so we can afford some more expensive equipment on this. Looks like 134 is as much as I'm going to get from it. So this is a fairly fast car from the 80s. I'm probably not going to go with any fancy aero at that top speed, although it might want it ideally. Looks like we can get 19 miles per gallon, perhaps, if we push the gears in the correct direction. No, probably not. 18.7 is as good as we're going to get. 9.2 seconds to 60, so we finally beat the original Tortoise acceleration. That had a lot of torque though, not as much as this quite, but it had a lot. Now the other thing we've got to do is we've got to grab the wheel arches and make them wider. Yep, it's going to be a wide body Tortoise. Not a name I thought I would say, but then, hey, wide body Tortoise is a thing. We're going to go with wider, larger alloys. 215s on a front wheel drive on the front. I don't know. They're probably fine in themselves though. So we're going to bring the rear in a little. Just a little. And that should do what we want. Yeah. So they're pretty well optimised. I would say the front track is probably wider, but then it's going to lean onto the front in corners anyway, and the front does all the work, so the rear just has to trail along. But just look at how primitive this suspension's getting. As the years go on, it gets more and more primitive compared to what we could be using, but then this is the Tortoise, this is how it was designed. We can't just go adding new suspension and redesigning every part of it, because by that point we might as well just design a new car. You know, we've got this chassis and we've got the suspension. By the mid-90s I'll probably create the successor to this vehicle, but for now the Tortoise will do its job. Cooling I think we should have enough, but I'm not certain. I can always add a bonnet scoop or something if I have to. As I said, I'm going to add some sportier wheels. BBS style stuff seemed very 80s. And overall, I like this. I think we'll go with medium compound. Not crazy high power, but not a low speed vehicle anymore. And we could go with 2-piston brakes, actually. I think we'll go 20mm bigger on the front and 10 on the rear. And the fronts are 2 pistons, naturally. Just all these little tweaks that make it a better sports car should be what we need. Also, having large brakes actually helps for once. Normally I just go with large brakes when I really don't need them, but in this case large brakes help because it's trying to be sporty. I think this could put a decent time on our leaderboard if the turbo lag isn't too hurtful to it. Also, I quite like the look of these wheels in a weird way. They don't look that fitting, but it's kind of special, if I'm saying that correctly. It looks like a very special car you would build. Maybe a Westo mod even, that's the term. And I think we'll keep semi-clad on the under tray. Ooh, we need more cooling. But as I said, we shouldn't have any trouble doing that. If we bring that down, we already have most of the cooling we need. I think we'll have about 15 going to the brakes. No. Yep, 15 or 12 even. They're not huge carbon ceramics or anything, so shouldn't need crazy amounts of cooling. And we're going to go back here, which should hopefully give us a bonnet scoop or something we can use to cool the engine. Where is the engine mounted? The engine's mounted there, so if we have it about there, that could dump some air into it perhaps. Yeah. There we go. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure I like that. Anyway, sportiness. Yes. Oh wait, I've had a better idea. I think. We have these side areas. If we go into vents, we should be able to find some nice looking vents, hopefully. Come on. Maybe flip that round. Not quite working for me. There we go. try and make those slightly larger. I don't like the look of those at all, though. Maybe if we find something slightly less obvious about it. Well, they actually fit, don't they? Not that I want to go full chrome, but still. There we go. It's not the ideal look, but it gives us a bit more cooling without ruining the design, so that should provide us with what we need. Yep. We're on edge there, though. Give it a bit less brake cooling. That should be enough engine cooling, even if it's only just. Ooh. I'm slightly worried about the speed now. I've probably slowed it down. Should we have a luxury cassette? No. We've got basic 70s, although it was standard 70s always on this car, but I just had to select that because it was as close as I could get. Suspension can stay the same, although we'll tune it for sport in this case. And overall, 1065 kilos. Yep, we've added something like 80 kilos to this car, or almost 80 kilos, just by having a turbo engine and a bit more ventilation and larger brakes and wheels. Wow, it's amazing what that can add. It's still not a ridiculously heavy vehicle though, and as the years go on, at least the weight is going from being heavy for a front wheel drive to being a lot more reasonable, a lot more average. Now, what else have we got? We've got 58.8% front weight, 41.2 rear, fairly well balanced for a front wheel drive, and 9.3 seconds to 60. So we need to finally give the gears a tune, and we should be ready to take it round. Top speed has stayed about the same, 132 that time. Yeah, it likes being on the edge of a power band, it seems, for top speed. Miles per gallon has gone down, probably due to the extra ventilation. I think we just shouldn't worry too much about miles per gallon and instead get the crazy acceleration. Like, look at what this is capable of if we push it to it. 8.2. Yep, that's probably coming with the turbo though, isn't it? If we can reduce the lag as much as possible, and the point it cuts in, it will accelerate quicker. So, somewhere along here. 8.2, where are you? There we go. There's a lot of wheel spin with this, but so we should expect it. It's, for the day, a powerful front wheel drive vehicle. Although I would go with a geared LSD. There we go, that has improved our acceleration some more. Just by virtue of being able to actually use its power. You'll see there's a lot less wheel spin as well. All in all, a well balanced vehicle for its purpose. The first version of this vehicle I built was almost as economical as this, despite being a particularly terrible engine. But you know, who can complain? It's a sporty car. If you want economy, you buy the standard version. There's nothing particularly wrong with a sports car being less economical. And we're going to take it round now, so I'll rejoin you when I've done that. Okay, so the time has been set. It is a 2 minutes 37.24 time, which puts us between the country and the Weissmobile. It's about 5 seconds slower than the country, just over, I would say. And that's not too bad though, 5 seconds slower than a land barge, but a land barge with around 100 plus horsepower more and rear wheel drive. So this holds up well for what is basically a modified economy car. I mean, the wider tyres and the better for power engine really does prove itself, I think, in this respect. As I was saying, shift keys are evil and they will stop what I'm doing on the recorder. But still, you'll see I've named it Tortoise Turbo, and I've put turbo in huge letters on the rear, because everyone has to know it's a turbo. Turbos were real trendy back in the 80s after all. Still, it's quite a nice little car I've built. It's very sporty compared to other tortoises. Who knew you could make it so sporty so easily? But still, we've got to replace this vehicle in the next episode, sadly. Also, there is the markets I need to show you. So if I go to the correct menu, hurry up, our antivirus attack again, popping things up on my screen. We've got a 4% profit here. I think it was 7% on the standard model, but we've had to accept slightly less profit in order to sell it for $12,000, which is about $1,000 more than the standard economy version went for. Though given the upgrade package you get on here, I think that's a decent enough price to pay. You get better brakes, you get a better engine as far as power is concerned, and just an overall quicker car. What more nicer looking wheels, I think, than the standard ones, partially because they're larger. And other than that, it is just a standard version of a car. I mean, there's those vents there, but it just looks like a standard economy car. Yeah, I would say I'd change the colour to something more sporty, but it's a tortoise, it has to be green. Maybe I could change the shade of green, though. That would always make for an interesting car choice. Yes, this is a sport version of a tortoise, although I don't really like that at all. Why don't I go for a darker version of that? Oh yes, that is a good colour. Look at that for a tortoise. There you go, when you see it in that colour now, you know it's a sport model. Make it slightly more reflective, I think. Come on, slightly more reflective, I say. And I think I'm going to leave it at this. So, goodbye until another day.